The Westwood Baptist Church of Richmond. It's good to be with you today. We're going to be talking about sound and basically the operation of the Allen and Heath GL 2200 soundboard. And today we're going to just sort of take a easy approach to sound. We can actually show you how to work sound with just pushing buttons, and like we've done it here on a Sunday before. But when you look at the soundboard, it looks like a whole lot of knobs. You know, just sort of get lost in the sea of knobs. Sort of, to me, like walking into an airplane cockpit and being expected to fly the plane. And I look at all those meters and those switches and everything, and I'd be a little bit afraid to turn a switch because I don't want the plane to go down. And it'd be my fault, you know. Well, sometimes a soundboard can be intimidating as well. But what we're going to do is we're going to make it as simple as we can. And we're going to talk about the main emphasis is signal flow. A friend of mine, Ed Cole has a men's ministry out of Dallas, Texas. And Ed Cole said before that the guy that knows what to do will always have a job. But the guy that knows why will always be his boss. And basically what we're going to try to explain tonight is why you do what you do. And the way to understand that is to understand signal flow. And so we're going to start as if I'm on stage right now. And signal flows from the sound source. Now, sound source right here is my mouth talking. It would be your singers and your vocalists up on stage. And the signal begins as a acoustic sound, whether that would be an acoustic instrument, piano, a drum, a singer. It's an acoustic sound is sound that's produced from an instrument that does not need amplification and you can still hear it. Now, an electronic keyboard produces electronic sound. With no amplifier and speaker, you can't hear an electronic keyboard. It's silent. So we have two types of sound that we deal with. Now, singers, drums, other instruments that you can hear through an acoustic sound, that is converted to electric impulses or electric sound. And that's what a microphone is. A microphone is a transducer. And a transducer simply transduces acoustic sound into electrical energy. How else could my voice flow down a wire? Because the microphone changes it into electronic impulses. Now, that's all you have in a soundboard is electronic impulses. That's what everything is. Now, an electric keyboard, they just plug straight in, and you don't have to convert acoustic energy to electrical. It's already done. You just plug it straight in. So basically, talk a little bit about microphones, because you'll be dealing with this quite a bit in the sound ministry. There are two types of microphones, two methods of transduction, if you will. The first one is one I'm using, is a dynamic microphone. We have the dynamic mic, and then we have the condenser mic. If you look at them, they look very similar. So, you know, it's a little difficult to tell one from another and what uses that you should use a dynamic versus a condenser. One thing that I can tell you, the best way to find out what it is to read on the microphone. You see down here at the very bottom, if you can get a close-up of that, it says condenser cardioid. Can you see that? Too close?
Too close.
Okay.
Too close.
Anyway, it says so on the microphone that it's a condenser microphone. This one says so right here that it is a dynamic cardioid. Now, there's a lot of classifications of microphones, but the dynamic and the condenser are the two types we'll talk about. Both of them are cardioids. Well, the cardioid actually is the pickup pattern. In other words, where does the microphone pick me up? Can I talk into the microphone from this side? Well, watch what happens as I turn the microphone around. Look where it starts picking me up. A cardioid gets its, is the pickup pattern. In other words, it gets its name from the heart because it's shaped like an upside down heart. And that's the pickup pattern. Pickup pattern is on this side and it's severely cut in on this side. And the reason for that is so you can stand in front of a floor monitor that's feeding sound back at you, and that floor monitor is not going to pick up in your microphone. It's going to pick up what's on this side of the microphone. So that's just a pickup pattern. Now the thing about a dynamic mic, we mainly use a dynamic microphone for soloists. This is for one person. Don't want a group to stand around this mic. Watch what happens here. We would typically use our sound, let's say, at this level. Watch what happens when I move the microphone just 2 inches away and I'm talking at the same volume. I'm talking the same volume, I'm not raising my voice, but look how loud that I am here versus right here with the same volume level. Well, the dynamic microphone, that's one of the traits of a dynamic mic, and it has great uses because you can isolate a vocalist on this microphone without picking up drums or loud instruments around them. So you use this, but you don't want to use this for a group because look how it's picking up a group. If a group is back from it, it's not going to pick them up. And a lot of churches, they use these for the choir, you know, and they'll have the choir standing there singing that way, and they'll have these hanging over their head. What do you think they're picking up over top of the choir's head?
Nothing.
Especially on one of these kind of microphones. Nothing.
Nothing.
It looks like they're miking the choir, but you're not hearing anything. Okay, so that's the dynamic mic. This would be used for soloists, and might be used for, you know, if you were miking an electric guitar or an electric organ that had its own speakers and you could put it in front of it. That's a great use for that. Okay, now I'll show you the difference between that and the condenser microphone. First of all, a condenser microphone, so a lot of times, check, there we go. A lot of times when you put the condenser microphone and connect it, you think it's broke. Man, what's wrong with this thing? Then the other one works. All right. Huh? The red button right? Up at the top. Right here? I can tell she's been to sound trained. What happens is the condenser microphone is the type of microphone that needs a battery or an electrical charge to operate. Now batteries, if you ever seen a microphone that had a battery in it, you had to unscrew it and put the battery in. All the time the batteries are going bad on you. You know, and they're dying, and then, you know, you leave them connected all week and you come to the service and you get in service and it doesn't work. So what the sound manufacturers started doing is they started putting a electrical charge inside of the soundboard so that no longer do you need a battery to operate a condenser microphone. This button right here, and that's what we're going to talk about, is one of these channels. And y'all can stand up if you want to see better, because it's, you know, really need to see. This button right here is what's called phantom power. It's a 48 volt charge that when we press that button, it now activates this microphone. Because I was talking through this microphone, it was the same thing as if we didn't have a battery in it. And it has to have that phantom power. Without the phantom power, it will not work. Okay, and on this board, one of the great features is, on the channel you need phantom power, you can push that button and it'll give you phantom power. The channels you don't need phantom power, you don't have to use it. Some boards you push phantom power and it gives it on every channel. And when that happens, you can burn up some instruments with phantom power getting back into them. We'll talk about that when we get into direct boxes. But let's look at this microphone now and how it works. Now I can come back off of this mic and still be pretty good. Now of course when I get closer it's still louder, but it doesn't die on me. You see how it's picking me up? Even back here. So what would be some of the usage for a phantom microphone?
Choir.
Huh?
Yeah, choir.
Choir, okay. See, you can pick up a group of people on this microphone because you can put it out in front of them. They can sing, hey! And they're coming through loud and clear. Okay, so a phantom power or a condenser microphone is more sensitive to pick up further back from the sound source. Choir is probably the most uses in church for the phantom power. We got choir mics up there, don't we? Those hanging microphones above the choir loft, they are phantom power mics. They're little teeny ones because they're on a wire and they're about that big, but those are phantom power, so that they can designed to pick up a group of singers that don't have to be right into the microphone. Another use is if you have an acoustic flute or a stringed instrument like a violin, something that is very soft, you can put one of these on it and it will help amplify soft instruments, more sensitive to pick up soft signals. So I've used these on, we've had violin sections. You can place these out there and the violins will then cut through that. Okay? All right, I'm turning off phantom power right now, and I've released that button, and you can tell it takes a few moments for all the phantom power to get out of the circuit, but it's now about all gone because my mic doesn't work. Okay, I'm going to plug back in the dynamic mic, because this is one we would use mainly for our soloists. We're going to take channel 18 right here, and simply channel 18 because it's not being used. Matter of fact, we've got a lot of growth room here in the church from channels 18 through 32. We got to give Lily something to do and get some more instruments in here. But I'm going to use channel 18, and we're just going to start up at the top, and we're going to talk about what every button does in one row. Because if you look at that soundboard, there's so many buttons on it, you get intimidated by it. But guess what? If we know what the buttons do on one row, we know what the buttons do on all 32 rows. We got 16 rows on this side, 16 rows on this side. All we need to learn is one. They're basically called channels. All we got to do is learn one channel, and then we'll know the whole thing. Of course, except for this section right here, where all of these channels dump into the master section. So we're going to learn both sides of the board right now, all channels. Okay, you ready for that? Okay, starting up at the top, we've already talked about the first button, the red button, which is the 48-volt phantom power used for what kind of microphone? Condenser mics. Dynamic microphones do not need that phantom power, hence dynamic microphones will work without it. We don't need that button pushed. Okay, the next button or switch here is actually a reverse polarity switch. This main use, and you won't see a lot of use for this switch, but as you look at the three prongs here of our XLR connectors, there are three wires in the switch, in this connector. If the person that put this wire together, the connector together, if they wire these backwards, that would put that channel out of phase with the rest of the system. If you have a channel that's out of phase, you can reach up and push that button, and it will do the same thing as switching those wires around without physically disconnecting them and reconnecting them.
How do you know if it's out of phase? Doesn't work?
No, it would work, but it would sound phase cancellation is what you'd be getting out of it. It could be a little hum in it, and then when you press that button and that little hum disappears. It could be a low hum, it could be a higher hissing type hum. But that would be one thing. Another thing is if the microphone sounded nasal, had a very nasal sound to it, then by switching this, many times you can correct that because there's a polarity problem. Okay, so this is, yes.
You can do that anytime during the service.
Oh yeah, you can pop this anytime. I'll just show you as an example. Test, 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 test. Check, 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 check. Doesn't interfere with anything. You're continuing to talk. It doesn't turn you on and off. Okay, so that's this. That's the polarity change. All right, right here is actually a line pad, and this actually will select. You have two inputs in the back of the channel. Two inputs in the back of the channel. The one that looks like this is a line level input. It's basically the same kind of input the guitar cables have used, bass guitar players and electronic keyboard players have used. Okay, that is a type of an input in the channel. And right below it is this type of an input in the channel, which is XLR. Okay, now you can plug one or the other into the input of the channel. You could actually plug, yes. Okay, and Monica's now filming the two type of input. One of them, this is your high impedance input right here, and this is low impedance. This is the type that is used commonly for your microphones. Actually, everything coming off stage is wired low impedance, and this is what we're using like for your tape deck. Up here, since we're back there, is your insert cables. When we talk about insert cables, we can talk about that later, but that's where that is. Don't get these two mixed up. They look alike. The one right above the XLR right here is for your input. We're using it on this board right over here for a reverb, an effects unit, because it's a short run. The difference, and I want to point, maybe it's a good time to point that out. The difference between this type of connector, which is our called a 1/4-inch phone plug. The difference between this type of connector and this type typically is this is called an XLR or a Canon connector. It's a balanced connector. Basically, it has pin 1, 2, and 3. Pin 1 being the ground, 2 being the height, 3 also being the ground. Generally, how it operates, and it's a balance. It will send a balanced signal long distances. This generally has what's called sleeve and tip. Sleeve being your ground, and the tip being the height. And this only carries 2 wires in it, and so it's also high impedance. In other words, it's a circuit that there's a high amount of resistance on the line. So you can't run a long run with the 1/4-inch phone plug unless it's a ring tip sleeve, which has another little insulator in here and a ring right there. You can have the ring tip sleeve and it'll carry the same type of circuitry as this would. So basically the high impedance and the low impedance means this being a high impedance type plug normally. High impedance, if we ran 100 foot from the stage up here to the sound booth, you get a lot of hum on the line because it would impede or resist the signal from getting through. The low impedance will allow the signal to go right on through. You could run 1,000 feet down the road with this connector and you wouldn't hear any hum. It'd sound just as clean as if we were plugged in directly, because it has a low resistance to the signal. It allows the signal through. We won't have a whole lot of problems with that, because most everything only takes one kind of plug, the type that you need. As you can see, the microphone here takes this kind of plug, and it won't take the other. So you can't really plug the wrong one in to most of the items. Okay, so we got sort of sidetracked, but the reason that we did is because this connector here, this button here, is the line and the XLR select button. This actually will select between using this input when you press it down. When you lift it up, it's using this input that I'm plugged into. It's using that one. So when you lift this up, see, if there's a lot of things can go wrong on a board that does as much as this one does, because, and especially if it's accessible to children, you know, that, or somebody who doesn't really understand what's up, what's what, and they just like to push buttons and turn knobs. Somebody could come in here over the weekend and push that button right there, and then wrong channel. That button right there. Then we're ready. They could do that to the pastor. Saturday night, the kids come in with the cleaning crew or something, press one of those buttons. Sunday morning, sound person comes in, we're ready, you know, you go ahead, the organ playing, pastor gets up, or the announcer, the worship leader, or somebody to the podium. They start turning the microphones on, and they can't get nothing coming at the podium mic. And you start going, man, well, I can't figure out what's wrong. So many things could be wrong. And you find out that sooner or later, you open that up, and here you are. One button can cause a problem in the service. The sound ministry is one of the most important in the church. It can make or break a service. I call the sound person the most important person in the band. They're the most important person on stage. And they're not really on stage. Why? Because what people do on stage, they can take hours and hours and hours of preparation, and then the sound person can come in. If that sound person doesn't know what's going on, they can ruin the service just by not knowing what's going on. A soloist gets up to sing, they're singing half their solo before the sound person ever found their mic to turn them up. You know, y'all have probably seen that happen.
Not half of it.
They up there singing, and they're going for it, you know, but nobody can hear what they're doing. That's a distraction. Another thing that can happen is this, if a sound person doesn't get the right kind of mix, doesn't blend the music and the singing together well. The sound person may allow feedback or squealing to take place. All of those things can ruin a service. But if the sound person is trained and knows what they're doing, and they come in and they focus, not a time to play. This is a very serious time. You need to, you know, grab the bulletin, know what's coming up next, know what that means to you. You know, basically you're staying ahead of the service and anticipating your next move, and you know where you're going. You know, if I got a choir selection coming up, then I'm going to go, wow, I need the choir mics and the music. Now, do I need the pulpit? Well, maybe, if the worship leader is up in there using it the same. The singers, the soloists. Is there a solo in this choir selection? A lot of times they put that in the bulletin, don't they? Solo by such and such. Did I see that in the bulletin? Okay. So they'll have solo. So you should be reading ahead and going, well, if so-and-so is doing a solo, where is so-and-so located? Are they on that side of the stage by that solo mic? Are they going to be grabbing that one? Or are they on the other side of the stage? So you're basically, you don't have twiddling thumb time when you're up here doing service. Always anticipating, what do I need to accomplish what they are doing, to accommodate what they're doing. Okay, I've just taken a few side issues. I go down to buttons, you know me, I'm hard to talk, hard to shut up, you know. Once we've determined whether we're going to use XLR or the phone plug, high impedance or low impedance input, then the next actual knob is our gain. This is input gain. This is like going out to the front of the house at the street, and if you don't pay your water bill, they turn the water off at the street. Then you can turn your sink on, or your shower, or your tub, or your washing machine, and there's no water, right? So this actually controls the signal coming into that channel. So you have to have your gain up to start hearing sound or signal through that channel. And it's off all the way down left, and the more further right you turn it, the louder it gets. As more input signal that's allowed into this channel, then you actually can use your fader here to turn it up and down. But if it's not on here, then the fader doesn't do much. Okay? Now, one thing to note about this, look right here, you'll see a green light blinking as I'm talking. This green light is good because that tells you that a signal is present in that channel. You see, when I turn that back, there's no green light. There's not enough signal to get into there to make a green light. As I turn it up, I'm getting a green light. Now I'm going to turn the fader off so we don't blow anything up here, but I'm going to show you. You can see as I turn this to the right, the gain, you see my yellow lights starting to light up. When I start getting yellow, that's caution. Caution meaning we're getting ready to overmodulate or to fuzz out the channel. If we have red, you see red here, and I'm now getting red, that's peak. What we're doing is we're overdriving the input of that channel, and listen to where we're getting fuzz because we're overdriving the channel. So if the red light is on, that's what you've got. But guess what? If the red light is not on, we got a clean signal. See that? So it's very important that we get a green light, but we don't want to get a red, or we're not going to get anything but fuzz out of the system. And it'll sound like the system's blown up, but in fact it's not. We're just overdriving the channel. Okay, the next button here that we have is the 100 hertz roll-off. Now, the 100 hertz roll-off, basically, that rolls off very low frequencies, like bass drum kicks, boom, boom, out of your microphone. You can roll that off by pressing it. It doesn't do anything to voice because the voice doesn't go down that far. You know, if you're micing musical instruments, you don't want to roll that off. But if you're having a problem controlling those lower rumbling sounds, you can roll them off of a voice without even affecting the quality. You don't have to. Matter of fact, if you don't need to, I'll leave them on because they don't hurt anything. Okay, we're going to move to the next section. This section here, the red and green, is the equalizers. We got an equalizer up here. How much you guys know about equalizers? You know anything about equalizers?
Just cost stereotype.
Cost stereos have them? Okay. You know that that down on this end, that you get a lot of bass out of this end, right? You know, fool with them on the cost stereo?
Yeah.
Okay. On this end, you get a lot of treble, a lot of your highs. Get out of that end. Here, you can get a real muddy sound in here. If you turn that on in your car stereo, it can get real muddy sounding. Just, you know, bad quality. Okay, I'm just showing you that because what this is called a graphic equalizer. And it goes down as low as 25 hertz. Or when in, I don't know how to teach it today, but he used to teach CPS, cycles per second. Have y'all ever heard that we hear with our ears 20 to 20,000 cycles per second? We can hear as low as 20, which is very low. And then we can hear as high as 20,000, which is very high, the very highest frequency we can hear. And everything between that. Generally, you get above 20,000, most people cannot hear it. There are frequencies up there that, they got dog whistles. You can blow a dog whistle, and what it actually does is it makes a frequency above what humans can hear, but dogs can hear up there. So a dog perks his ears up. We don't hear it. Okay? Well, what this is, this equalizer here, if we change this, it affects everything on that soundboard. See, we got no signal flow. Signal flow is coming from the stage down the microphone into the soundboard. I've jumped over here to the output of the soundboard. The gravity equalizer will affect every channel. In other words, you can mess up every channel at one time by messing with this. This is pretty much set where we don't even have to turn. We don't have to move it. It's pretty much set. But I wanted to show you in a graphic type way how your frequencies are low to high. Well, we have the same kind of control on each individual channel. See, if we've got a microphone that sounds just muffled, we might have a microphone that sounds muffled like this. We can change that. We don't go over here to deal with it because that affects everything. We got a problem on one channel. Well, how do we fix it? We go to the equalizer section of the board.
I think this is the area that we need to spend a lot of our time training on, because that's probably where most of the bulk of complaints lie, is that the sound quality is really bad as far as a muffle, or there's too many highs in there.
Okay. A couple of things that can make it muffle. If the speakers that you have there were angled down probably a little more on the people instead of straight out, you'd probably get more dispersion from the high frequency horn at the top of the cabinet.
It's especially noticeable where
Up front, probably.
it's especially noticeable where the clerk mic is.
Yeah.
Directly under the Yamaha speaker. And we try to tell people, don't keep putting the podium there, but they do that. And what
Yeah.
happens is that there's really nothing we can do,
Right.
but just deal with it. That's it.
Right.
I don't know if you guys hear that they sound like like they're in a tin can or in a tunnel effect. That's what it does. And there's nothing we can do about it.
Well, that's causing a little bit of feedback, I think, in that range, when you get a microphone right in front of the speaker. You're probably getting a mid-range feedback.
Okay, actually, if you stop that for a moment.
Talking about as we left off, we were talking about the equalizer section. Now, I want to tell you that this button right here is a part of the equalizer section, EQN. Basically, if you take that off, it defeats the equalizer. And what that does is if we set each of these straight up to 0, set them up to 0, the blue ones actually, and we push this button or we let off of that button, we're getting about the same thing, because what that does, it selects 0. We're neither boosting or cutting. Let me show you what I mean by boosting. We have 0 in the center, and we go back to -15 to the left and +15 to the right. If we take it back, this is my highs right here. My treble, if I take that back to -15, I'm cutting the highs back. If I boost them, I go to the right and I'm adding highs. Okay? And that's my highs. The extreme opposite of the highs are low frequency. So you got HF for your high frequency and LF for low frequency. And if I turn my lows down, or I can boost my lows, you see that? And you want a reference point. Well, what's flat? Instead of turning all the knobs to 0, you can hit that button and find out what flat sounds like. Okay? Sometimes that's dangerous, especially in the service, because especially if you get a wireless microphone or something that's getting ready to squeal anyway, and you turn these things to get the squealing out, when you hit that, you lose all of that control. So it's dangerous to deal with the EQ in and out button during service. Okay, so highs and lows are pretty easy, right? The mid-range is our craziest frequencies, and we have 2 mid-range controls. We have MF1, mid-frequency 1, MF2, mid-frequency 2. This is basically, MF1 is the high side of the mid-frequencies. MF2 is the low side of the middle frequencies. Now, what you have, the blue, all the blue, there's 4 blue, 6 bands in here, but it's 4 blue knobs. They are boost and cut. Boosting or cutting the signal. The greens are your sweeps. That's the thing that sort of throws everybody. Because what happens is, the sweep changes what you're boosting or cutting. I'll give you an example. I'm going to boost the mid-frequencies right now. Okay? That sounds pretty nasty. But watch what happens here when I turn I'm leaving the boost up. I'm going to turn the green, and it's going to change, because what's happening is I'm now boosting the lower end, and I'm changing my crossover point of the frequencies that I'm actually boosting. You hear all that? Makes a lot of changes by sweeping. You can sort of hear that sweep. Now if I cut it, I get the opposite effect. Where I was getting a bunch of highs up here, I'm getting lows now, because I'm cutting the frequency I was boosting. If I was boosting highs because I've selected the high end, then if I cut it, then I'm cutting the high end off. And I get an opposite effect. Now let's see what happens. I'll get more highs now if I'm cutting, because if I pan toward cutting my lows, guess what that's leaving in is the highs. See? So it's sort of an opposite effect. Now, yes.
You select the frequency with the green sweep,
Yes.
and you cut.
I boost or cut
You
with
boost
the blue.
or cut with the blue.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Now, everybody said, how you know where to set the sweep?
Mm-hmm.
How you know whether to boost or cut it? I'm going to tell you one thing that I've used as a rule of thumb, and you can too, is when you set a graphic equalizer, we find that the smile works best. And the reason it does is because you're boosting the bass, you're boosting the highs for clarity, and you're cutting back on the mids that cause your muddy sound, cause the muddy tone. I do that in the graphic equalizer. Okay? Same thing can work on your board. What I normally do is I will cut, not drastically, but I will cut my mid frequencies back. I'll boost my bass, boost my highs. I got a warm sound down low, and I've got clarity up on the top, and I don't have that muddy sound. Now, if I boosted my mids, then look what happens. I start getting a real muddy sound. That's not very pleasing to listen to. So I'm going to do the same thing I do anytime on a graphic. I'm going to cut a little bit of my mids back. And well, where's my best place to cut it? Well, I know I'm going to cut. That's what I know. You may do it a different way. I know I'm going to cut it. Now I'm going to turn my sweep around until I find out what sounds best to cut. How's that going to sound best now? Okay? And it's my highs. Now we'll go to my bassy lower end of the mid sweep, and I'm going to work on that until I can get a cleaner sound there. That's what you're doing. You're going to cut a little bit and then work your sweep till it sounds best. That's all you do with a sweep. Sweep don't kill. And sweep ain't human. It's basically, and it's not even rocket science, you're doing that until you're getting the best sound. And if you're having a trouble spot, like feedback or something, we might control some of that feedback with a sweep.
Okay.
Just whatever happens. Okay, is that pretty good for the equalizer section? Now we want to hear what it sounds like without my tuning. That's what it sounds like without me tuning it up. And then if I want to hear what I just did, what change I made, I can push the EQ in, and I'll get my effects that I'm adding. That make sense? Y'all good with that?
So basic rule is the sweep, which is green, that finds the frequency that you either want to boost or cut with the blue.
Mhm. This blue and that blue, these two work independent.
Mhm.
It's the two middle blues that work with the sweep. The
Okay.
sweep, the green above it,
Mhm.
that's the boost and cut, and the sweep is the green above it.
Okay.
These two work together, those two.
General rule of thumb in using that, just to find a starting point, is to what we have right here.
That's my starting point. I have found pretty close to that as being about the best sound, generally to start with. You may, every microphone is a little different, every soundboard may be a little different, every sound system's a little different, every equalizer somebody tunes a little different.
Okay. Now, what if we are experiencing problems with a lot of like
And the only prayer you got on that, like that, put a windscreen on it.
Mhm.
I don't like to do that
Mhm.
because windscreen decreases your clarity.
Mhm.
But sometimes if it's just so boomy and poppy,
Mhm.
a windscreen's all you can do.
With the small windscreen that we have on the pulpit microphone, would another one on top of that, you talking about a larger one or the same size, try to put two on?
Who does most of your popping? Pastor?
Yes.
Okay.
Now, what's up under there now is a nylon stocking, is up under that windscreen. And then the windscreen is on top of that.
Now, what I find that kind of helps is that if we come off of her volume some, and I think it's actually what I found that I usually do is to bring her volume down out of those monitors, because the monitors have the monitors down there seem to have a